Hi, my name is Elizabeth. If you're new, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm so glad you're here. Today we'll be chatting about a book called The Art of Community: 7 Principles of Belonging by Charles H. Vogl. I'll be sharing the ideas that I found extra helpful in the book, and even some that I'm not fully on board for, I'll let you know. I'll share some personal stories as this book sparks discussion, and you'll have to let me know what you think and if you've read this book before. While we chat, sit back and relax with me as we make some winter crafts. The Art of Community was inspired by Charles spending a lot of his life feeling like an outsider. That sparked his quest to learn how to create strong communities. In his graduate schooling, Charles hosted a weekly dinner in his home. Every Friday night, he and his wife would send out invitations and host group after group. Eventually, it got so big they had to enlist volunteers to help with the event and host the evening in their own homes. Suddenly, it was a dinner club community that had sparked from meals around his dining room table. Since then, he's been helping companies, churches, and groups around the nation be stronger and more connected. When I started reading this book, my expectation was that it would have tips to help build a person's individual community, but most of the book is actually about principles of planning events and gathering people into a strong group, which is also good. And I think the tips can be applied throughout a person's life, not just to a group. So that's kind of the perspective that I was reading it in. In the introduction, his first advice comes from C.S. Lewis. Find something you like to do and do it often. Then invite others to join you. But it's not just about sharing an activity with people. Charles says communities are created when at least 2 people begin to feel concern for each other's welfare. Okay, so I think I've found the best way to make these little pomodoros in a way that looks cutest. Like this one that I made, I think is probably one of the best ones. The pattern looks fairly regular, as opposed to like one of the earlier ones. I had tried to do a spiral pattern at one point. Let's see if I can find where that one is. Here it is. And you can kind of see the spiral on certain angles, like see there's the spiral down, but it was really hard to stay consistent. And so overall it's kind of hard to see the spiral. But on the ones where I did a straight line, I think they look better. So it's like straight down, and then on the other side, straight down, and so on. So that's what those look like. But I'm going to show you how to do that method. Obviously, I'm using little mandarin oranges, and they're probably not the best idea, like the best orange to use, because they're very, very juicy. And so even as I'm doing this, there's like a pool of orange juice on the counter, and they are very wet with orange juice right now. I might put them in the oven to try to fix that, but I'm not sure if it's gonna work out. You're supposed to use like regular oranges, but this is what I had, and I wasn't eating them like fast enough, and so I was like, well, let me make these little things. I've seen a lot of YouTubers make them recently. One of the YouTubers that I follow, her channel is called With Love Christina, and she had them as like little like table decor on her kitchen table, and it just looked like so cute, and so I figured I would give it a shot, but we'll see if they actually dry the way they're supposed to. Basically, these little things are supposed to be like an air freshener. Like at first when I saw them, I was like, are you supposed to eat them? Or like, are they like flavorful? Like what's the thing? So you're not supposed to eat them. They're just for an air freshener and a little cute display. Sometimes people will put ribbon on them, like their little ornaments or things like that. I was thinking about maybe like hanging them up. I don't know if people do that. I'll try to find some inspiration and see if people hang them up. But yeah, I thought that they were really cute. So that's what I'm working on right now. So here's what they look like when they're all done, at least the first day. They did not work out. They didn't dry the way that they were supposed to. And I think it was a combination of using mandarin oranges instead of regular oranges, which mandarins are more juicy. and we need them to be dry. And then also, I think instead of using the knife, if you're going to do this, I would recommend using a toothpick. So that way you poke the hole of the toothpick and you stick the clove in there. There's going to be less surface area for air and stuff and bacteria to get in. So hopefully that will help the orange dry instead of rot. But I'll show you what it looked like after a few days. Womp womp. Oh, well. Now let's get back to the book. Charles says that if this book succeeds in its mission, then our communities will do 4 things better. Members will experience a personal growth. They'll feel excited about the group. They'll work together to make a difference. And lastly, the group will be more fun. If you're intrigued by the concepts I'm going to be talking about today from this book, you can grab it for yourself at the link in the description below or at your local library. In part 1, Charles walks us through how to differentiate a community from just a group. To make this point, he lists 5 things that communities do different. They have shared values, a unique membership identity, generosity from members, especially leaders, moral prescriptions, and insider understanding. If you're wondering what insider understanding is, I was too. The example Charles gives to help us understand is that of a community of firefighters. Nobody except other firefighters fully know what it's like to embrace that job in life. So a key component of communities, as opposed to a random collection of people, is that there's some shared perspective, even if it's as small as an inside joke. It helps differentiate who is in and who is out. This sounds complicated and even a little exclusionary, but in part 2, literally the first chapter of part 2, Charles dives into his first principle of the 7, which is boundary. And you know what? I learned something. I used to think that groups that have an in and out group are all bad, but Charles Vogl explains that it's an uncomfortable fact of every single community in existence. We like to think that our group has no boundary line, but the fact is that our group is created to serve a specific type of people, and there's difference between being an open invite, or as Charles calls it, a self-selection group, which is good, versus incorrectly saying, well, everybody belongs. The fact is that not everybody belongs in every group. A hiking group is made up of people who enjoy hiking and want to do more of it. A church is made up of people interested in that religion. A school community is made up of people who have children who go to the school or work there or attend the school themselves. Something has to bring people together, and if there's a magnet to bring people together, some people are going to be repelled by the idea of the group. Later on, Charles warns against groups that teach people to fear or dislike outsiders, but as long as your group isn't doing that, it's okay for there to be a boundary line, values that your group shares within. Self-selection groups means that anyone can decide for themselves that they'd like to be invested in being a part of the group. Or like they say in Ratatouille, not everyone can be a good chef, but a good chef can come from anywhere. Sometimes I work so hard at building community, planning events, or making friendships that I forget that I'm not going to be best friends with every person, and I'm not going to enjoy every activity, and that's okay. If there's a friendship that I just can't make work, it's okay to let it go. I used to create community by inviting everyone in my circle every time, but that can end up feeling exhausting and unaligned with my personal values. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm always a more the merrier person. If someone wants to bring a friend, I'm always for that. But when I'm planning events, it's okay to make them not seeker-friendly, but instead something that maybe only certain types of people would be interested in, like an arts and crafts night. The second principle in Charles's book is initiation, which just means how people know they're part of a group. Charles says that even an invitation can show people that they're wanted and belong. If you're hosting a dinner in your home, obviously that will require sending out some invitations, even just a text message. But some groups, like a bowling group, maybe wouldn't. Maybe there would just be a sign in the bowling alley. So Charles talks about other ways to signify to someone that they're a member of the group. Maybe the bowling alley would order that person a jacket when they officially join. Speaking of invitations, at some point in the book, Charles talks about a friend that came to his weekly dinners only a few times over 3 years. But this friend had said that the community dinners were very impactful for him. That's very sweet, But personally, that's not the kind of community I want to have. I would like one that's invested and prioritizes what we're striving for. So I would probably stop inviting that kind of person, even if they had a good excuse every time. I would just be like, let me know when you're free on a Friday, and then you're more than welcome, and leave it at that. Because a person who rarely attends is not aligned with the personal value that I have of having close friendships. I don't want just acquaintance level friendships that never progress, or that I only see a few times over 3 years. I want the 3 a.m. friend. I've heard this phrase before, but Charles uses it too in his book. Basically, it means the kind of friendship where you can call at 3 a.m., bawling your eyes out, and they'll pick up the call. But I think it's all about balance. If it brings you joy to keep extending invitations, and the person keeps saying, invite me next time, I'll try to come, then do that. But I will say that there is a rejection tax when you invite somebody who can never come to anything. I think in general it's good to encourage people to extend more invitations, which is what Charles does in the book. A lot of times it works out. And I've had a lot of times where I think a friendship is fizzling out, that we're never going to get to over the acquaintance stage because this person's not prioritizing my invitations or extending many back. But then sometimes you end up breaking through the person's busy schedule and a close friendship can ensue. Everyone likes to be wanted, and sometimes it's hard to tell when a "sorry, I'm busy again that day" might become a "yes, I'm free that day and I'd love to join." So I think it's all about balance and about prioritizing your mental health. Sometimes that'll mean extending another invitation and working at developing the friendship to the 3 a.m. friendship stage. And sometimes it'll just mean prioritizing the few close friends that you already have. If you don't have those close friends yet, then some present discomfort in extending more invitations than you'd ideally like to receive rejections for can help get you to the place where you have those close friendships that you're looking for. Be brave as you can. Charles reminds us in his book that it means a lot to people to receive invitations even if they can't come. In most cases, people will be happy to get an invitation, even if they're busy and can't make it. Now let's talk about principle number 3, rituals. I didn't get much from this chapter, to be honest. The main thing that I liked here was Charles talking about how important rites of passage are. Things like graduations, weddings, funerals, and other similar events. I'm really big on holidays. Any holiday can have traditions applied, and those rituals will change over time, but they can help bring people together. The rest of the chapter goes on to talk about how to give speeches. I'll let you read that on your own. If you're looking for help writing a maid of honor or best man speech, this book can help you. Charles' principle number 4 is the temple principle, which is about creating what he calls sacred spaces for the community. Obviously, this is very religious language. But Charles says this applies to any organization. His supper club temple was the home that they would host the feast in. All the attendees would travel to meet together and share the meal. I thought his emphasis on creating the space was interesting. Charles talked about the height of the main event, the sound in the space, and even the lighting. It gave me some inspiration for some of the events I'm thinking about hosting. I was thinking of starting a monthly soup night for my friends. I like his tips for preparing a space. For special lighting, I could use candlelight. Sound, I could put on a fireplace video crackling on the TV. Height, I could do an opening dinner ritual like a toast. Now let's dive into principle number 5. Stories. One of the things I thought was intriguing in this chapter was Charles's encouragement to share vulnerable stories when you get together with people you trust. It can show you trust them and open the floor up for people to talk about their real lives. I don't have a whole lot to say about this section. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of these tips are about crafting groups and sometimes less about a personal community of friends around you. So the next chapter about Principle 6, I'm just going to skip entirely. It's about symbols. If you're working on creating an official group around something, I would encourage you to pick up a copy of this book and read deeper, because it is an easy read and it has a lot of good group building tips throughout. Now let's talk about the last principle, inner rings. This was a really rich chapter with a lot of advice for crafting groups, living life, and being happy. One thing I thought was very impactful in this chapter was Charles Vogl talking about the two reasons why people want to be part of groups to begin with. The first is to belong, and the second, to make a difference. When a group does one or both of these things, it can evolve into a strong community. Charles then talks about how every community has an inner ring, which has another inner ring inside that, and another one inside that, and on and on. He says that instead of pursuing attaining the highest possible prestige in any group, that we should instead focus our attention on our character maturation, on the service of others within our group, and that doing that is how we progress. The people at the top have the highest level of responsibility of service towards the rest of the group. So when there's a group that we want to get more involved in, see how you can help. Charles mentions multiple surveys that study the impact of generosity on mental health. They reported that, quote, giving help was a more important predictor of better reported mental health than receiving help. Oftentimes we think that if we could just get a little help with life, that we'll be happier. And sometimes that can be the case. But if there's any way we can help people in the world around us, that adds a significant boost to our lives in the form of meaningfulness. Meaning makes the gray skies turn blue. A lot of the advanced ideas in the rest of the book I won't be getting into today, but I'll leave you with 3 more lessons from Charles. Number 1, create campfire experiences. This means when you want deep friendships to form, reducing the number of people at an event to 5 or less opens the floor up for people to share and be vulnerable. More than that for one evening, and people won't have the opportunity to get deep. Trust that the people around you are also looking for intimate friendships and provide the space to meet them there. Number 2, it takes time to grow a friendship. Charles quotes from Marissa King's book, Social Chemistry. Let me know if you'd like me to read that book in one of the next videos. But Marissa says in her book that it takes 50 hours to go from acquaintance to friend, and 200 hours to get to a close friend. So don't give up if you've spent a lot of time with someone. A lot of my friends I met in the last 2 years, and I'm finally getting to the point where I feel very close, and I'm grateful for that. But it took 2 years of work to get to where we are now. That time can't be devalued. Lastly, tip number 3. The last tip I'm sharing here is what Charles calls his most powerful tip for creating friendships. We're not talking about groups anymore. We're talking about what this expert says is his top tip for building intimate, personal friendships. And that is acknowledge people for the difference they make in your life. I took Charles's advice on this one. And this year for Christmas, but you can do it for any occasion, I wrote a few of my friends a quick note, and I followed Charles's general format for this. First, telling them what they and their friendship mean to you. Second, appreciating them for something specific they've done for you and about who they are as a person. Third, how their friendship has made a difference in your life. It's like an appreciation sandwich. That's the format I used, and at least one friend already responded back with a similar note. And let me tell you, I almost cried. You can never know the difference you've made in someone's life and what they really love about you until they tell you outright. Everyone has their own read of the relationship and their own self-talk, and just cutting through that to tell someone how you really feel about them makes a huge difference. And as Charles says, building friendships is how the best part of our lives are created. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you were able to learn something from Charles like I did. Here's a quick recap of today's tips. Enjoy what you do, then invite others to join you. Trust that the right people will accept the invitation. Remember that people like to be invited. Even though it can feel bad to receive a rejection to an invitation, you never know when your next invitation could spark a closer connection. Design the experience. Think about the lighting, sound, visual interest, and traditions. Be the first to share about your real life. This helps others feel welcome to do the same. Stay generous. It helps others and yourself. Even your mental health is positively impacted. Keep some groups small. This is where deeper conversations are shared. And finally, send a message of appreciation to deepen your friendships. Always remember you deserve a home with love and joy. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining.